Welcome back, everyone, to Real Leaders for the Global Goals. I'm your host, Kevin Edwards. Alongside me today, we have Meesha Brown, the Executive Director of PCI Media Impact. Meesha, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Kevin.
PCI Media Impact. Tell our audience a little bit about it and kind of how it came to be and how you got here as well.
So PCI Media Impact is a 34-year-old not-for-profit organization, and we've actually been in this building since our founding, right across from the United Nations. And we are a storytelling organization. We tell stories for social change in the areas of environment, social justice, and health, and I'm looking forward to telling you a little more about our work.
Well, tell us the story about your work in PCI Media.
So I'm an educator by training. I taught many years teaching, spent some time as Director of Literacy for New York City Public Schools and on national education policy. So for me, many problems that we face as societies are problems of learning. And so the question is, how do we learn how to live in new ways, unlearn and relearn? And it turns out the story is a great technology for doing that. So if you think about fables, children's stories, how are life's lessons embedded in a format that's easy to understand, digest, and engage with?
So what type of organizations, I guess, do you work with? And maybe what's your formula for bringing their story to life?
Mm-hmm. So we work with a range of organizations. We do quite a bit of work with UN agencies, UNICEF, UNFPA, UN Environment Program, have done some wonderful work around conservation with UN Environment Program, but also governments, foundations, USAID. So really it's about where are places where there's information that people need access to, everyday people that are probably not technical experts. It's difficult to really translate that information, and how can we work with the best thinkers in the world on some of the biggest problems and translate that knowledge into formats that everyday people can understand and act on.
So maybe provide our audience an example, your
Sure.
favorite example of kind of what comes to mind when you do something like this.
So I want to start sort of at a meta level about this, which is, when we think of the global goals, a lot of times, sometimes we can think of them as individual things. But really, they're integrated, and they work sort of like a double helix structure. They're all connected.
Totally.
And they're, depending on the place you're working in, they're organized in different ways, and there are different combinations of the goals that need to be addressed. But there's always this interconnectedness, and a story really allows us to explore that. So for example, in Bangladesh, in partnership with, which 17 is a big goal for us, partnership for the goals. We do everything in partnership. We're working with UNICEF Bangladesh and the government of Bangladesh on a television drama called Ichidana. And Ichidana is about this story of this girl, Tenzil, and she lives in this village where, among other things, a lot of girls her age are afraid to go to school. Because when they're on their way to and from school, there's this gang of boys that taunts them and terrorizes them, led by this, kind of cute but really horrible person named Charger.
Named Noah.
you know the kind.
Right.
And but even if Charger and his friends were not there, the girls in this village face other issues, namely that their parents are reluctant to let them go to school because the social norm is that girls don't need to be educated because they're going to marry early anyway. So it turns out that Tenzil, after a funny series of events involving her trying to keep Charger from harassing her, and she ends up kicking a football, into his head. It turns out, we find out Tenzil is a great football player. And her teachers start a girls' football team that sort of begins this turning of the tide about what girls are capable of when they're given opportunity and support. And so you see in this one story how, goals 3, 4, and 5 really come together. It's about access to education. It's about gender equality. So it's not one, isolated conversation. It's the integration of these big goals and the way they happen in people's lives. And the story allows us to take all of that and bring it to life in a way that people understand in a local context.
Incredible. What's been the impact from something like this? Viewership or stories that maybe you can't even keep track of because of all the little things that are going on in between?
So, I mean, we always complement our storytelling with a range of feedback mechanisms, call-in shows, social media, school-based or community-based events. And so we're getting lots of engagement around Ichidana. It's airing across the country in Bangladesh. Thousands of people following and engaging on social media. There are actual football clubs in schools and where we're seeing strong girl engagement. And, you know, there's not one thing that causes all of these things to happen, but what we do know about a good narrative storytelling is that it helps to set a norm where it makes it more palatable, more acceptable, more recognizable that these things occur. So we sort of create the fertile ground for these seeds of change to grow.
I love that. I love that. It's very interesting. Meesha, you seem pretty passionate about this. Would you say that your employees that work here are driven by that that initial purpose and intent every day?
So it's all about passion for us. It really is, and valuing people. I mean, stories are really about connecting with people where they are, and we have the issues that we have in the world because we're all not where we should be on lots of things. But if we can meet people where they are and tell stories from a place of compassion and love and inspiration, then we have found that we can go quite a long way.
So the storytelling capability is like a tool to raise awareness. Like you said, acts as a technology to raise awareness and bring change amongst 17 of these goals.
Yes.
Is there a goal that you relate to the most?
No, I mean, as I said, it depends. So if we were going to be in, talking about our work that we're doing in Sierra Leone, we've just launched a new radio drama there, not television, because radio is the conduit that makes the most sense in this situation. We're really talking about life on land, life on water, and climate action, because there are these coastal communities in Sierra Leone that are really suffering from, the changes in the environment, severe flooding and storms, and there are all of these coastal reserves. And the mangroves, of course, are a big part of this. And people are really struggling with, do we use the mangroves for economic gain, or do we preserve them so that they provide protection from these increasing storms and also, sustainable food and livelihood, because they're also like little nurseries for fishes, So, but the technical, the sort of complexity, I guess, of how those natural systems work and the changes in the natural system can sometimes be a lot to take on. And so, again, we're producing this radio drama. The main character I love, her name is Marie, and I particularly love Marie because I was part of creating Marie. I was at the design workshop. And Marie started out as an evil character, but no longer. She's actually going to change over the course of the story. And it's about, how do we sort of negotiate these changes, and watching someone else do it. Role modeling is so important. Watching a fictional character do it, seeing their thought processes, their trial and error, gives people the opportunity to reflect on what they might do in the same situation before it's even happened to them.
Meesha, with having a platform like this, it takes a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
What are some of the discussions you're having in that room when you're creating this to make sure that there won't be any negative ramifications, as well as on the opposite side, if you do make something that might be a little controversial, like women going to school. I know it sounds odd, but women going to school and having a proper education in another country. So two things. So what are some of the ramifications you're thinking about? And then have you made a decision that's received a lot of lashback?
I love it that you asked this question. It's so great. So first of all, everything we do is grounded in research. We always work with technical experts. So we bring great communications expertise, but our partners in the UN organizations, other organizations we work with, they're bringing the real technical, the subject matter expertise. So they're always in the room. Secondly, we're always partnering with local community people. We don't create content from New York, like I've never lived in Bangladesh or Sierra Leone for that matter. And there are people that live and work in those places that know better than anyone on our team, what makes sense and what doesn't. So we're all in the room. When we created Marie, we were all there together and had some fascinating conversations about, in this room where we're creating this drama about climate change, about what does it mean to be a strong woman and how do we want to represent women in this drama. So again, that interconnectedness. So we take a strong process to really safeguard against, exactly, what you're flagging that could be a real problem, making some missteps that we could have avoided. So first the research, secondly, the engagement of people that actually live in the places where we're working. And then secondly, have we done anything that's gotten interesting pushback? So I don't know about negative. I cannot really think, and it's actually a question that comes up quite often. And I think it's a testament to the process that we don't really have negative pushback per se. But I will tell you that we do have unintended consequences. Right. So we were working on a drama in the Caribbean, actually, and it was around family planning and gender norms. And there was a negative character whose name was Scattershot. And we intended for Scattershot to be the negative character. And the negative character is supposed to, provoke feelings and reactions to people so that they disassociate from those types of behaviors. Well, it turns out the audience loved Scattershot. And they would call in and they would praise him and they would associate with him. And episode after episode, we just couldn't figure out how to you make this break. We had a plan and the audience was not following it. And so the writers really had to keep going back and shifting the storyline and tweaking Scattershot's character until the audience was able to see that character in the way that we were meaning to present him. In the end, Scattershot had to be mean to his mother, and that's what did it.
Right.
That was everything else he did was okay, but mean to your mother, that was it.
Meesha, leadership takes a lot of courage to make big decisions. So the last question I have for you is, what is your definition of a real leader?
Wow. A real leader. So I think a real leader is first and foremost a good listener. We find over and over again in our work that people will tell you what they need to be successful. They'll tell you the information they need. They'll tell you the support that they need. They'll tell you the barriers that they have to change. And so first and foremost, if you're going to, lead people and support them into getting to a goal, you have to understand all of those things very well. And I try to practice it here at PCI Media with my team, and then also we try to practice that in our work around the world. And in fact, in this realm of social and behavior change communications, which is so important to us reaching the goals, like we have to be able to communicate with each other effectively. I think that's something that we could all do a bit better, is listening to people that are grappling with these challenges so that we can be more clear about solutions that will actually be meaningful and impactful and well received.
Well, Meesha, I appreciate your time coming on the show today. I've been listening a ton. We talked a lot today.
Yeah, we did.
Talked about kind of your background, how you came into this, some examples about how PCI Media Impact is creating these storytelling initiatives in Bangladesh, in the Caribbean, and lastly, we followed up with your definition of a real leader. So we just want to thank you and thank the people who are listening to this right now.
Thank you.
And just to make sure, go out there, be a leader, be a better listener, and always keep it real. Thanks, Meesha.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Kevin.